That's the million-dollar question, not because the answer is complicated, but because it is deceptively simple. The way to reach the termination stage is to practice. You don't practice for 20 days, you don't practice for a year, and you don't practice for a vacation. You just do the right thing every single day, year after year. Hello, and welcome to the Core Podcast. We're your hosts, Aline Keller
and Shannon Polson.
I'm a precision nutrition certified coach.
And I'm a NASM certified personal trainer for over 13 years. We support women 30 years old and over to pursue health through realistic nutrition and fitness strategies. Our main passion is to help you find that smile when you look in the mirror, find freedom when you eat, and joy when moving your body.
Make sure to subscribe for your weekly dose of doable health tips, practical advice, and so much more. It's the health education you wish you'd had. All right, so today we're talking about the stages of change in weight loss. This is all the things that we go through when we're losing weight. And you're going to see that everybody goes through the same things. It's not something that only you're struggling with. And we all go through these stages in our journey towards losing weight. And before we start, I just want to say that these stages apply to any goal in your life, anything you're learning, anything you're changing, any health goal, but I'm only going to focus on fat loss today. So you've been through this before where you go on a diet, and if you've done enough diets, you've been sold a lifestyle change. This is in air quotes, instead of a diet, because that's the new thing to do now. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. Okay, that's a pet peeve for a different episode. And things are working well. You get into maintenance and then you gain some weight. Either you gain it back, either all of it or a little bit, but something happens and you feel like you've walked backwards. And it is so frustrating. And we've had a starvation mode episode. You can go listen to that. We've talked about how your body fights fat loss. You can go listen to that. But this episode is less about science and more about behavior. So today I'm going to talk to you about why this happens, not from a biological point of view of what your body is doing, but from an emotional and behavioral point of view. So you may have heard of the 6 stages of change. And if you have listened to this podcast long enough, you recently heard about some of these stages in an episode that Shannon did about the action and maintenance phases in training. So the 6 stages of change, and also you can go into the link on the description to see an image with these, are pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and relapse. When it comes to weight loss, this is a pattern that we see all of the time. And it's a pattern for most change in our life. As you can see when you look at the picture on the post, this is an upward spiral, meaning that after every relapse, there's going to be a return to a previous phase. We're going to talk more about this soon. There's a repetition that goes into behavioral change before it becomes ingrained. You have to repeat something long enough for it to become part of who you are and what you do. So let's see this in action when it comes to fat loss. So stage 1 is the pre-contemplation. This is the I don't need to change phase. In this stage, there is no intention to take any action towards weight loss. Maybe you've tried it before and you failed, you feel demoralized, you don't believe it's possible. This is where, while we may know that there is an issue, we're not willing to change or don't believe we are able to change. This can come as a wake-up call at a doctor's office, or seeing how high your weight has gone, or feeling that your body is no longer performing well. However it happens, there is a recognition that there is a need to reduce body fat, but there is no drive to take action, and there is no belief that it can be done. And we see this in clients as well. You know, every once in a while, there'll be someone who says, oh, Aline, I know that I need to lose weight, but I'm just not in the right headspace to change, or I'm not willing to change. That's pre-contemplation. Stage 2 is the contemplation stage, where you say, I might change. And in this stage, you want to lose the weight eventually. You want to lose the weight someday. This is where you're going to start on Monday. Oh, on Monday, I'll start my diet. Or next month. Okay, no, I'm just going to finish the month, and then the first of next month, I'll start my diet. Or January. This is where this comes in. All these arguments are contemplation. You're aware of how important it is to change, but it feels too hard.
Yeah, I was going to say that really, the January 1st, the New Year's resolution,
Yep.
like I'll just start on January 1st. The calendar is going to switch a day and everything's going to change. And that's what I'm going to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
you nailed it.
And this stage happens because balancing how much work it's going to take, because we talk about this, it's simple, but it's hard, right? So it's going to take some work. And, the balance between the work it's going to take with the benefits, people can get stuck here quite a while. Like you want it, but you don't want it enough to do anything yet. And then that's when we kind of put these numbers for ourselves, like we're just pushing it away. So stage 3 is the preparation. I will change, really. So in this stage, you have the intention to change and you are willing to develop an action plan. And this is where having a coach makes a huge difference, because working with someone, we can find the best strategies to reach your goal the healthiest way possible while decreasing your chances of a relapse. If you listen to our last episode about why hire a personal trainer, why should you hire a trainer or a nutrition coach to help you through this? Because when you are willing to change, when you're into the preparation stage, you need to decide what you're going to do, how you're going to act. And a trainer, a coach, what we do is we give you the shortest possible path with the least chances of relapse. So it helps you get you where you want to go faster. And here you have the intention of moving into the action stage, and you usually start putting actions in place. So for example, talking to that coach, hiring a trainer or hiring a coach, choosing a diet, organizing your schedule, figuring out what foods you prefer. All of this is still in the preparation stage where you start taking action. Then we move into stage 4, which is action, which means I have started to change. Now here you have a plan. You are taking steps, you're forming new behavior patterns. This is usually the longest of the 4 stages. It normally lasts at least 6 months. Now, the length of time that you stay in this stage depends on how much weight you're trying to lose, how consistent you are, and what strategies are in place to reach your goal. And going on a crash 10-day diet to lose 10 pounds is not an action stage, okay? That is taking action, but in a way that is it's almost guaranteed to lead you into a relapse. So the action stage, it's where you have a plan and you over time develop this to reach your goal.
That's what I was going to ask, Ailini, is if someone did like that 21-day fix, because in their mind, they're taking action, right? They're taking action for the next 21 days. Would it essentially be setting themselves up for that relapse phase? Because again, what happens on day 22 or day 59?
I would say that for me, and I've hammered on this so many times, people are going to get sick of hearing it, but what's your exit strategy? What's your
Mm-hmm.
plan for day 22? So,
Yep.
I know lots of people who have done this 21-day program and they've had success.
Mm-hmm.
Not as they didn't lose as much as they thought they were going to lose, but they had success, but they also moved on to something else. It's not like day 22. It's like, okay, now I've fixed my metabolism, I've healed my hormones, I've tricked my body into losing fat, and now I can eat 3 pizzas, right? So it really, I think it has to do with what's the plan? Because when we say action, that's why it takes about 6 months, because it's not one thing. It's not, right? It's a process. And you see this with your clients as well, right? Like it's not, okay, I want to have a 6-pack. Okay, for 20 days, you're going to do these 3 ab moves and you're set for life. I mean, even if they got a 6-pack in 20 days, they'd have to maintain it.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I love that you go over the exit strategy. That's something that's fairly new to me, and it makes perfect sense because, well, I mean, I know that we kind of dog on like these 21-day fixes and challenges and whatnot, which I'm not going back on my word, but I have met people that have established different habits. You know, like if someone is wanting to drink more water or
Mhm.
to have more steps throughout their day and they're kind of giving themselves that 21-day challenge and then they establish those habits and it's long term, like that's great. Use those incentives to have that long term
Yeah.
success. But I love that you talk about an exit strategy. What does happen on day 22? What are you going to do next then to maintain this momentum? And yeah, you're definitely right when it comes to exercise. Like, you know, you see a lot of like the 21-day push-up challenge and like that's
Mhm.
great. Like let's see how many push-ups you can do at the end of day 21. But like you said with an exit strategy, now are you going to start incorporating like if you did a push motion, are you going to do a pull motion now? Are you going to do a lower body? Yeah, what are you going to do next? So I think that's great that you touch base on that.
Because it's the same idea. Some people will say, oh, I have to lose. I had someone once saying, oh, you know, is there any diet that I can lose? I don't remember how much they wanted to lose, but it was a significant amount for their birthday on the weekend. And I'm like, I'm not the person to help you. Like, I am not the
Yeah.
person to help you. If you want to, just lose all that water weight, I'm sorry, no, because that's very short term. That doesn't take into account that you want long-term change. And the action stage is very particular, not only in how long it's going to last, but it depends on the variables for each person. So how much weight do you actually need to lose? What type of diet are you going to do? For example, is it a flexible diet? Is it the plate method? Is it a hand method? Is it an elimination diet? There are a bunch of different options. Are you going to incorporate diet breaks or not? Are you going to reverse diet? Has your metabolism gotten to a point where you have, we've talked about this in the other ones, I'm not going to go into this, but have you gotten your metabolism to a place where you need to reverse diet to then reach your goal? Are you taking any vacations during this action stage where you're going to pause the weight loss and then get back to it? So all of these things, they change how long the action stage is actually going to last.
Another great point. I just love that so much. It's very similar to fitness where you have to have a deloading phase.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll start chatting about the different phases of training, and there's 5 of them. And some people don't even get to phase 4 and 5 because it doesn't resonate with their goals. But even if they get to phase 3 or to 5, you have to deload. You have
Yeah.
to give your all of your systems a break. And I imagine it's the same with diet too.
Well, and it's exhausting, right? So when we talk about
Mhm.
taking breaks or not, some people are like, oh, I'm going on vacation, but I still want to lose weight. Well, that sucks.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're not going to enjoy that vacay.
You really want to, like,
Oh,
personally, I think that aiming for maintenance on vacation is a great thing, but
yeah.
so all of this has to be considered in how long this action stage is going to take. And after about 6 months with anything that you're aiming for, but talking again about fat loss, after about 6 months, you have definitely made solid progress. 6 months of consistent work for fat loss. You've made a lot of progress. You've modified your lifestyle, and your progress is observable by other people. So the first few months of your action stage, you're going to lose weight, but it's not enough that other people are going to notice. When you hit about 6 months, for most people, that is a little bit before 6 months, actually. For most people, it's observable by other people. Other people notice that you have changed. And this is kind of the same for exercise. It takes a few months for you to look like you're working out because your body actually has to build muscle, which is super hard, but that's also a different podcast. So the
Mhm. Yeah.
action stage means I have started to change, and it takes about 6 months. And then the next stage is maintenance. Maintenance is where I have changed. And if you've listened long enough, you know that we love maintenance. Maintenance is amazing. And maintenance is where a new behavior pattern has happened. And the fat loss that happened in the actual action phase has been sustained for a reasonable amount of time. And by this, I mean at least 1 year. So maintenance for fat loss, you're talking about, I've been maintaining my weight loss for at least a year. That is maintenance with fat loss, at least a year. The goal is to sustain it long term and for life. Now, in this stage, in maintenance, you progressively become confident that you can continue with the lifestyle that you have, and the behaviors, they're embedded into your life. So how you eat, your exercise routine, your quality of sleep, your hydration, your relationship with food, your mindset work, all of these things are just part of who you are. And you eat well, you exercise, you sleep well, you manage stress, you hydrate, no matter how busy you are or how free your life is, no matter what's going on in your life, these behaviors have become a priority and they are non-negotiable. Now, based on current data, maintenance lasts anywhere from 6 months to 5 years, which means that you can see that maintenance means I have changed, but it's still something that you have to think about. So these things are embedded in your life and they are priorities for you, but you still think about them. And you'll see why I'm saying this in a little bit. So stage 6 is relapse, and relapse means I've returned to my old ways. Now, relapse, to be honest with you, it's not actually a stage in itself, it's a return to an earlier stage. So that's why if you look on the graphics I put on the website, it's gray because it doesn't necessarily happen after maintenance and it doesn't necessarily restart the cycle. The relapse is just a failure to maintain the stage you are in, action or maintenance. So when we talk about fat loss, it's a failure to maintain the existing fat loss, either because of inaction, going back to previous eating patterns, not moving your body enough, or you doing the wrong activity. For example, using food as a coping mechanism for something that happened in your life. Now, relapse or fat gain, it's typical, but it is not inevitable. The biggest reason why fat regain happens is the lack of an exit strategy. And that's why our work together is so important during maintenance for a prolonged time. So again, if you go into the action phase without an exit strategy, if you do your maintenance without really understanding what that maintenance means and how long that's going to take, chances of a relapse are much higher. If you have an exit strategy, you really take down the chance of having a relapse. Now, does that mean that you are doomed to forever lose and gain weight? Absolutely not. And how your body fat loss, go listen to that again for strategies on not regaining weight. But again, when we talk about behavior, there is a 7th stage, and it's called termination. Termination is the stage where we say, I am changed forever. Now, this is the stage where the temptation to return to old eating patterns and life behaviors is no longer present. Now, this sounds like a unicorn for fat loss, but this is possible. So this is why I said in maintenance that, this is part of your life. This is ingrained, but it still takes a little bit of thought. When you get into termination, this is the person that doesn't really make plans for when they have to sleep or wake up. They just gravitate towards bed at a certain time and they wake up without an alarm at a certain time. These are the people who they don't debate whether they should eat X, Y, or Z or not. Their eating patterns are so ingrained that they just make the best decision with what's in front of them. They don't stress out if they're eating a donut, and they don't celebrate because they're eating a salad. They just eat a certain way that supports the lifestyle that they've created. So that being said, we've talked about this before as well, only 5% of people who lose weight reach the stage of termination. This would be after 3 years of maintaining weight loss. So again, we saw that, you went through an action phase, you lost the weight, you went through a maintenance phase, which could be anywhere from 6 months to 5 years, but we're talking at least a year for fat loss. Termination would be at least 3 years of maintaining the weight loss. And it's a sadly low number. In termination, behavioral change is just part of who you are. there is success, and you don't have the temptations you used to have, and your efficacy is 100%. What does that mean? Does it mean that you're like cured and hallelujah, nothing's ever going to happen? No. Okay. So for instance, I'm an emotional eater. Now, I've been in termination already for a few years, and I've lost the weight that I had to lose. I'm in a good place. I'm maintaining my weight. I am still an emotional eater, but now it's not something that is in my day-to-day anymore. Now it is so acute when that happens that I can spot it from a mile away. I know before it happens, I know that it's going to happen, and I have the strategies to tackle this. So I'm not saying that termination means that you're a completely different person. It could be, I've seen these cases, but this just means that you can self-regulate, you can rebalance, you can look at food differently, you can naturally navigate towards the things that support the weight you've lost and support your new life, instead of it being an effort to go there. So eating, exercises, sleeping, light hydration, and stress management actions, these aren't just a priority anymore. You do them without constant effort. They are ingrained in your being, which is different from maintenance. Maintenance, they're part of what you do, they're part of your lifestyle, but they still require some thought. In termination, this is just something you do. Now, in fat loss, this means maintenance in the sense that when you're finally done losing the weight and you can have a different focus in life, you're not going to go back to overeating. You're not only going to eat what's highly palatable, ultra processed foods as a coping strategy. And you're not going to go to this because, you had an argument with your partner, or you're on vacation, or a life situation implodes your world, or you're unhappy at work, there's a dent in your car. You don't go back to that behavior. You are able to, in the termination stage, you are able to go through all of these life things without reverting back to food in excess to cope with whatever's happened. You found healthier ways to cope with life, and the new behavior, it's no longer a struggle. It's just part of your identity and lifestyle, and it has persisted for a long time, at least a year, ideally 3+ years when it comes to fat loss. Now, the big question is, how do you get there? And that's the million-dollar question, not because the answer is complicated, but because it is deceptively simple. The way to reach the termination stage is to practice. You don't practice for 20 days, you don't practice for a year, and you don't practice for a vacation. You just do the right thing every single day, year after year. And it's so simple. It's so simple, and it's so incredibly hard to do with anything that challenges you. So when it comes to weight loss, it's incredibly challenging to not overeat in certain triggering situations for you. It's incredibly challenging to restrain yourself in certain situations until you reach your goal. And these are things that you're just going to have to keep doing for life. And it's hard. Now, some of these behaviors, these are just things that you're going to have to do over and over. And I wish I could say it's super fast. And there are many numbers out there talking about habits. So some places you're going to see that habits are forming in 14 days, 21 days, or 60 days. I'm not going to dispute any of that. There is enough evidence behind all of these numbers. And that's why so many fitness and weight loss programs are around these numbers, 14, 21, and 60, because these are numbers that we can solidly see people building habits during this time. I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying is that a habit is different from a trait of your being. Having these behaviors and choices be second nature takes a lot of time. So in a certain amount of time, 14, 21, 60 days, whatever it is, these will become a habit. They're going to become ingrained in a certain degree. But for this to be simply automatically what you do, that some are gonna take years, some will take a lifetime, and some will be super quick. But the point is that you can do it. It just takes the opposite of what our insipid diet culture has you believe. It takes time and patience. The two things that diet culture is stripping from us is time and patience. We want everything quick and we want it now. And this level of behavior change to get to the termination stage or to maintain your weight loss, it doesn't happen overnight. So my suggestion to you is to make the investment. Choose to do the small things day in and day out that will give you the biggest results. So I used this, I was in an interview the other day and I used this analogy, and I'm going to slip it in here for you guys. Imagine your health as a bucket. And in front of you, you have some big rocks, you have some pebbles, you have some sand, and you have some water. And you have to fit all of these things into this health bucket. Now, some people will start with the easiest things or the seemingly easiest things. They'll put in the water or the sand or whatever it is. Now, if you put in water, sand, pebbles, you cannot fit the big rocks into this bucket because there will be no space for them. What you have to do is you have to put the big rocks in first. You put those big rocks in, and then you go to the pebbles. You put the pebbles in, they are going to find space in between these big rocks in this bucket. And then you put in the sand, and the sand is going to find the space between the rocks and the pebbles, and it's all going to accommodate in this bucket. Finally, with the water, water will find the minuscule space and it will get into the bucket. The same thing is with your health. Your big rocks are your nutrition, your sleep, your exercise, and your stress management. You have 4 big rocks. Your sleep, this is a whole other episode, but I'll go through this real quick. Your 4 big rocks that have to go into your bucket first is what you're eating, how you're moving your body, how much you're sleeping, and how you're controlling your stress. People will come up, and I'm sure Shannon can get a million examples of her own. People will come up to me and they'll be like, okay, what is the ideal macro split? You guys, for 99% of people, that is pebbles. Actually, not even pebbles. For most people, that's sand. For some people, that's pebbles. You don't need that to start out. People will ask, okay, what is the ideal window to eat my protein to maximize exercise results? You guys, that is literally water. Unless you are an athlete, this makes no difference for you. So you're worried about things that aren't your big rocks in your health. So my suggestion is choose the things that will have the biggest results. And the biggest results are sleep enough hours, just get enough sleep. Eat 80% minimally processed foods. Sure, you can have 20% of whatever you want to stick in there. I've given you guys the example of my salads that are, all minimally processed stuff. And then I put a handful of Doritos. I love it. It's 80-20, it's balance. Okay. But, eat mostly minimally processed foods. Of those minimally processed foods, most of them should be plants and protein. Drink your water. Exercise, but don't exercise if you can be solving the world's problems while you do it. Focus, push yourself, put some effort into it. Have fun in your life. Find things that bring you pleasure and make time for those things. This is part of stress management. This is part of mental health. Lower your stress and do whatever it takes to learn to manage your stressors. Now, this is deceptively simple, just with time and patience, focus on the big rocks. Your life is going to change completely. If you pay attention to what you're eating, if you move your body enough, if you sleep enough, and if you manage your stress, your body will change. Your life will change. It just takes time and patience. Now, it's not easy at all, but it's simple. It's much, much simpler than you would expect. So don't major in the minors. Lane Norton talks about this all the time. Don't major in the minors. The water and the sand, don't even look at those things. The pebbles, work on the pebbles after you've worked on your big rocks, but don't give your attention to, fads, to these tiny little details. Major in the majors. Master the things that seem little, but that honestly have massive impact. And for support and going through, these stages where, I want to plan, I want to change. Okay, let's talk. We say this every once in a while. We're both taking new clients. You can join our coaching, our programs, and we are here to help you. And like Shannon mentioned last episode, maybe it's for a couple of sessions to get some things in order and point you in the right direction. Maybe you want to stay for the long haul. Whatever it is, we are here to support you to find what are your, how can you best work on your big rocks, which by the way are the same for everybody. How can you best work on these big rocks so that you can lose the weight, keep it off, and get to a termination phase where you're going to do something else. You're not going to worry about weight loss anymore. You're going to have a different goal in life.
Wow, that was great, Eleni. The last 5 minutes should just be its own little side message that everyone listens to in the morning when they're getting ready. I mean, those big pebbles or big rocks compared to the water, I mean, 100%. 100%.
We
I
can do a
hope
whole
that really
episode on
resonated
that.
with you. Yes. And I'm just over here, just like jazz hands all the way. And that termination phase that you talked about too, like it's never going to be perfect. It's never
No.
that you're just not going to think about that donut and that it was in a bad category or that I need to go run 5 miles in order to lose weight,
Yeah.
but it's going to get easier.
Mhm.
It's going to get better. It's going to just be a nice flowing life of happiness and joy and freedom. But yeah, you got to work on those big rocks first.
And our focus changes, right? Once you get to the goal and you maintain the goal, you can look at something else, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you can shift to something else. Well, thanks everyone for listening. And we have starting next week something really fun. This is going to happen for about 3 to 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. We are going to talk the phases of exercise training. And by this, we mean that Shannon mentioned this a little bit today. There are different phases of training that it's important to go through. And not everybody goes through all of them, but these are phases that whether you are working with a trainer, you're not sure what direction they're taking you in, or you're trying to work on something on your own, it's important to know what these phases are and how to go through them. So that is a series that we are starting next week. Next week is the introduction to the phases of exercise training, and this is something we're going to be working on for a while, and you're going to love it. So we will see you next week.